On October 1st, 1957, the same small fire went out behind 1.5 million American homes, all on the same day. That was the morning Los Angeles County made it illegal to burn your own trash in your own backyard. 1.5 million backyard burners, the brick boxes and metal barrels behind nearly every house, shut off at once. Within months, the smoke they had been pouring into the air dropped from 800 tons a day to almost nothing. Here is the strange part. Almost everything your grandfather did in his garage that year was about to become against the law, and he had no idea. Number 12 is the one that quietly killed the family dog, and it cost about 25 cents to avoid. Number 9 sat on a shelf next to the children's bicycles in half the garages in America, and today owning it can bring a federal fine. This is the difference between a quiet Saturday project and a phone call from the county, between the way your father kept his garage and the way the law says you have to keep yours now. If you remember the smell of a garage in 1960, the oil and the gasoline and the cut grass, do me a favor and subscribe, because this list is going to bring all of it back. Let us count down the 15 things every American did in the garage in 1960 that would get you fined today. We start at number 15. We start with the thing that made the smoke. In 1960, your trash did not go out to a truck. It went into a barrel or a brick box in the corner of the yard. And on a slow afternoon, you lit it. Paper, food scraps, and by then plastic too. All of it burning a few feet from the back door. Everyone did it. Nobody thought twice. But when Los Angeles counted the cost, those 1.5 million backyard burners were pouring 800 tons of filth into the air every single day. That is why on October 1st, 1957, the county banned every one of them. The families who switched to trash pickup stopped breathing it. The families who kept burning out of pure habit kept poisoning their own kitchens through the open window. Today, that barrel can cost you thousands. Then there were the leaves. Every autumn, you raked them to the curb, struck a match, and stood there with the rake while the pile smoked into the street. The smell of it is probably the most American memory there is. Here is what most people miss. That smoke carries the same fine particles that lodge deep in your lungs, the kind that trigger asthma and worse. Starting in 1971, state after state wrote open burning into law, and today, in some places, lighting that pile can bring a fine of up to $25,000. The man who bagged his leaves was called fussy by his neighbors. The neighbor who kept burning filled the whole block with smoke and never once connected it to the child down the street who could not stop coughing. Number 13 is sitting in your memory right now. In the corner of the garage, the old car battery. When it finally died, you carried it to the trash can and dropped it in, and the truck hauled it to the dump with everything else. Simple. Except a car battery is several pounds of solid lead sitting in a bath of sulfuric acid. In the dump, that acid eats through the casing, and the lead leaches down into the ground and the water. Today it is classified as hazardous waste, and you cannot legally throw one away. You carry it back to the store. Keep that one word in your head, lead, because it is going to come back at the very end of this list, and it is going to matter more than anything else on it. Number 12. Here is the one from the start of the video. When you flushed the radiator, the old antifreeze had to go somewhere, so you tipped the pan into the gutter and watched the bright green liquid run off down the street. It almost looked pretty. That is the whole problem. Antifreeze is made of ethylene glycol, and ethylene glycol tastes sweet. 3 or 4 teaspoons will kill a grown dog. 1 or 2 will kill a cat. Every year, somewhere between 10,000 and 90,000 pets in America die exactly this way, lapping up a sweet puddle in a driveway. The fix cost about 25 cents, a handful of cat litter to soak it up. 17 states now force companies to add a bitter agent so animals spit it out. The family that wiped up the spill kept their dog. The family that hosed it into the gutter buried theirs and never knew why. When the painting was done, you had half a can of paint and a coffee tin of thinner left over. And the easiest thing in the world was to pour it down the storm drain at the end of the driveway. Out of sight, gone. But a storm drain does not run to a treatment plant. It runs straight, untouched, into the nearest creek or river. The same water where the kids swam in July. 1 quart of the wrong liquid can foul 1 million gallons of fresh water, a full year's supply for 50 people. Under the Clean Water Act, doing it on purpose is a federal violation now. The family upstream poured it down the drain and forgot about it by dinner. The family downstream drank it. Number 10 lived in a flat pan under the workbench. When a part came off the engine caked in grease, you did not go buy a special cleaner. You poured gasoline into the pan and scrubbed the part right there, bare hands, no gloves. The fumes filling a closed garage. And in 1960, that gasoline was leaded, carrying 2 to 3 grams of lead in every gallon, along with benzene, which we now know causes cancer. Worse, that open pan of fuel often sat a few feet from the water heater, with its little pilot flame burning day and night. You can guess how many garages went up. The man who used a sealed solvent kept his eyebrows and his lungs. The man with the open pan of gas was one stray spark from losing the whole house. And here is number 9. The one I promised you from the intro. The one on the shelf right by the children's bikes. It was a white powder called DDT, and you could buy it for about 25 cents a pound at any hardware store. You dusted it on the garden, sprayed it around the foundation, even fogged it inside the house to kill the flies. It worked beautifully. That was the trouble. In 1962, a writer named Rachel Carson published a book called Silent Spring, and she showed the whole country that this miracle powder was building up in the soil, in the water, and in the bodies of the people using it. 10 years later, in 1972, the government banned it outright. The family that kept it on the shelf, right where the kids played, did not find out for years what they had been breathing. They thought they were protecting their home. Here is where this stops being nostalgia and starts getting uncomfortable. Number 8 is a job every weekend mechanic did. When you pulled the wheels to change the brakes, the drums were packed with fine gray dust, so you grabbed the air hose and blew it out in one satisfying cloud. That cloud was asbestos. A study by the Environmental Protection Agency found that brake dust averaged 33% asbestos fibers. And a single puff of that air hose sent billions of them into the air you were breathing. A mechanic named Art Putt did it every day for years. He was diagnosed with mesothelioma and given a year to live. American brakes carried asbestos well into the 1980s, which means it is still on the shelves of old garages today. And the next 2 are the ones still sitting in those garages right now. Number 7 came in a glass ball you threw at a fire. They called it a fire grenade, and it hung on a bracket in the garage and in the kitchen. Inside was a liquid called carbon tetrachloride, and that same liquid filled the can of spot remover you used to lift grease off your clothes in the workbench. It seemed like a miracle. It put out fires and erased any stain. But carbon tetrachloride attacks the liver. There is a case on record of a father and son who simply cleaned up after one of these old glass grenades shattered. And both ended up in the hospital with their livers failing. The Consumer Product Safety Commission banned it for the home in 1970. The thing on the wall meant to save your life was quietly taking it. Number 6 is the smell of every garage in America. When you changed the old oil had to go somewhere and the ground was right there. You poured it out behind the garage or onto the gravel drive to keep the dust down, and the earth just drank it up. Here is the number that should stop you cold. 1 quart of used motor oil can contaminate 250,000 gallons of groundwater. The well that fed your kitchen tap was pulling from that same ground. Today, the Environmental Protection Agency can fine you up to $37,500 a day for it, and you can take your oil back to the store for free. The family that saved it in a jug had clean water. The family that poured it out back could not understand years later why the well had started to taste wrong. Number 5 happened the day the old refrigerator finally quit. You dragged it into the garage to strip it for parts, took a wrench to the line in the back, and let it hiss empty. That hiss was Freon, the refrigerant, and you could not see it or smell it. So it felt like nothing at all. But that gas rises straight up and tears a hole in the ozone layer, the thin shield that keeps the worst of the sun off all of us. Since 1993, letting it loose on purpose has been against the law, with fines that climb past $40,000 a day. The man who called someone to capture it did the slow, careful thing. The man with the wrench felt like he had gotten away with something for free. Number 4 was the cleanup at the end of every project. You had half cans of DDT, weed killer, paint, and solvent piling up. And you did the obvious thing. You dug a hole out back and buried them, or you tossed them in the burn barrel and let the fire deal with them. Done. Except buried chemicals do not disappear. They sit in the soil for decades, leaking down toward the water a little more every year, long after the man who buried them is gone. Since 1976, federal law has treated every one of those cans as hazardous waste, with strict rules for getting rid of them. The family that drove them to a collection site closed the book. The family that buried them out back left a problem in the ground for whoever bought the house next. Number 3 is the boy standing in the doorway of the garage on a Saturday, helping his dad. He held the part soaking in leaded gasoline. He played in the cloud of asbestos brake dust because it looked like falling snow. He stuck his fingers in the open can of lead paint. A child's growing brain and body soak up these poisons far faster than an adult's, and the damage does not wait. It was never just the grown men breathing all of this. Here is the part nobody on these lists wants to say out loud. We did not know. That is the honest truth, and it is the hardest part of all of this. Every father in that garage believed he was teaching his son something good, and in a way he was. He just did not know what else he was handing him. Which brings us to the 2 worst of all. Number 2 coated almost every surface you can picture. The walls, the porch railing, the kid's crib, the garage door. It was lead paint, and it was prized because it lasted forever. When it came time to repaint, you sanded the old coat down to bare wood, right there in the open driveway, and a fine dust drifted across the yard and settled on the grass where the children crawled. That dust is where the danger lives. It does not take a paint chip. It only takes the dust. The federal government finally banned lead paint for homes in 1978. Decades after the harm was known, the family that scraped carefully and cleaned up protected their children. The family that sanded in the open air dusted their whole yard with a poison they could not see. And that brings us to number 1, the thing that tied all of it together. Leaded gasoline. Not just in the pan under the bench, but in the tank of every car, the mower, and the red can in the corner. In 1960, every single gallon carried 2 to 3 grams of lead. Every time an engine ran in that closed garage, that lead went into the air, onto the floor, onto your hands, and into the lungs of the boy standing right beside you. Think about this whole list now. The battery, the paint, the gasoline. It was lead again and again in the one room where the family spent its weekends. When the country finally banned leaded fuel for the road on January 1st, 1996, something remarkable happened. The level of lead in American children's blood fell by 70%. Almost overnight, once we stopped. You can repaint a garage. You cannot give a child back what the lead took. So here is what I am going to ask you to do, and it is small. This week, walk into your garage and find one thing. The old battery, the can of something with no label, the jug of oil waiting by the door. Just one. Take it to the place that handles it the right way. You will spend 20 minutes, and you will sleep better. Because here is the thing about the men who kept those garages in 1960. When you talk to the ones still with us, they all say a version of the same sentence. We did not know. They were not careless. They were doing exactly what their own fathers taught them, in the only way anyone knew. The smoke, the oil, the sweet green puddle in the driveway, all of it was just Saturday. The world simply learned, slowly and at a real cost, what that Saturday was doing to the kids in the doorway. Tell me in the comments which one of these your father did, or which one you did yourself before you knew any better. I read them, and you are not alone on a single one of them. These are not just old habits we outgrew. They are the quiet difference between the way we loved our families then and the way we finally know how to protect them now.